How does uninviting your loyal boyfriend from New Year's, just to make your ex feel comfortable, lead to a humiliating and public breakup? What started as a simple party plan ended with legal documents, evidence folders, and my boyfriend calmly ending our relationship for good. Can you really call someone a villain when he chooses dignity over drama? I'm Mirabel Vey, 32 years old, and I work as an office administrator downtown. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I deserved more excitement, more attention, more validation than what my quiet life was giving me. I was wrong about so many things, but most of all, I was wrong about Henry. Henry Vey is my husband of 8 years. At 34, he's a high school history teacher who comes home every evening with stories about his students and a gentle smile that I'd grown tired of seeing. We have a 6-year-old daughter named Eva who draws pictures of our family with bright crayons and asks innocent questions that cut deeper than any adult accusation ever could. The whole mess started 3 weeks before New Year's Eve. I was organizing our annual party, something Henry and I had hosted together for the past 5 years. Our apartment isn't huge, but it's got a nice living room with big windows overlooking the city, and we'd always managed to squeeze in 20 or so friends for champagne and midnight kisses. That's when Elliot Rains walked back into my life. I was at work, filing insurance claims and answering phones at Morrison & Associates, when he appeared at my desk like some kind of romantic movie cliché. 33 years old, wearing an expensive suit and that same charming smile that had made me weak in the knees back in college. "Mirabel Chen," he said, using my maiden name. Still beautiful as ever. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Elliot, what are you doing here?" "Marketing consultation with your boss. Didn't realize you worked here until I saw your name on the directory." He leaned against my desk and I caught a whiff of his cologne, something sophisticated and nothing like Henry's simple aftershave. "We should catch up. Coffee?" That coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into drinks after work. Drinks turned into long text conversations that I deleted before Henry could see them. Elliot was everything Henry wasn't. Spontaneous, exciting, full of stories about his travels and his high-powered consulting job. He made me feel young again, desired again, important again. "You should invite me to your New Year's party," he said during one of our secret lunches. "I'd love to meet your friends." The idea terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Why not? We're just old friends catching up." His eyes sparkled with mischief. "Unless you're worried about something." I wasn't worried. I was intoxicated. For the first time in years, someone was paying attention to me, really seeing me. Henry loved me, sure, but it was comfortable love, predictable love. Elliot made me feel like I was starring in my own life instead of just existing in it. So I invited him, and then I realized I had a problem. Henry was excited about the party. He'd already taken the night off from grading papers, bought new champagne flutes to replace the ones Eva had accidentally broken, and started planning his famous midnight toast. He did this every year, stood up in front of our friends and said something heartfelt about gratitude and new beginnings that made everyone tear up a little. The thought of Elliot watching Henry's earnest speech, of seeing them side by side, made my stomach twist with something I didn't want to examine too closely. 3 days before the party, I made the decision that would destroy everything. "Henry," I said, finding him in our bedroom folding laundry with his usual methodical care, "I need to talk to you about New Year's." He looked up with a smile. "What about it? Did you change your mind about the decorations? Because I already hung the lights in the living room." "No, it's not that." I twisted my wedding ring around my finger. "It's just, I think it might be better if you didn't come this year." The pillowcase he was holding slipped from his hands. "What?" "I invited some old college friends, and there's this whole dynamic, you know, some relationship drama from way back. It might be awkward if you're there." Henry's face went through several expressions. Confusion, hurt, disbelief. Mirabel, it's our party, in our apartment, with our friends. I know, but who did you invite? His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath it that I'd never heard before. Just some people from school. You don't know them. The lie tasted bitter. Look, it's not a big deal. You could go visit your mom, spend time with Eva, maybe take her to see the fireworks downtown. Our daughter is supposed to be at the party too. She's been talking about staying up until midnight for weeks. I hadn't thought about Eva. In my fantasy of impressing Elliot and feeling young and desired again, I'd somehow forgotten about our 6-year-old daughter who'd been practicing her countdown and asking if she could wear her fancy dress. She can still come, I said weakly. Henry sat down heavily on the edge of the bed. Let me get this straight. You want me to skip our annual New Year's party, the one we've hosted together for 5 years, because some college friend might feel awkward? You're being dramatic. Am I? He looked at me with those patient brown eyes that had seen me through morning sickness and job interviews and family funerals. What's really going on, Mirabel? This was my chance to tell the truth, to explain about Elliot, about how lost I'd been feeling, about how I needed something more than our quiet life, but telling the truth would mean admitting things I wasn't ready to admit, even to myself. Nothing's going on. You're being paranoid and jealous over nothing. I crossed my arms. I just want to have a nice party without you analyzing everything and making people uncomfortable with your teacher mode. It was a cruel thing to say. Henry's thoughtfulness, his way of asking genuine questions and listening to the answers, was something our friends had always loved about him. But I needed him to be the bad guy in this scenario. I needed him to be unreasonable so I could feel justified in what I was doing. Henry stared at me for a long moment. Then he stood up, walked to the closet, and pulled out his overnight bag. Where are you going? To my mum's, with Eva. His voice was eerily calm. You can have your party, Mirabel. I hope it's everything you want it to be. He started packing methodically. Pajamas, toothbrush, Eva's favorite stuffed animal. I watched him move around our bedroom like he was checking items off an invisible list, and for the first time, a flutter of unease moved through my chest. You don't have to be so dramatic about it, I said. Henry paused in his packing. Dramatic? Yes, acting like I'm asking you to move out or something. It's one night. You uninvited me from our own party, Mirabel, in our own home, because some college friend might feel awkward. He zipped up the bag with more force than necessary. If that's not dramatic, I don't know what is. I just want one night where I can relax and not worry about... About what? About me embarrassing you? About me not being exciting enough for your college friends? The accuracy of his guess made me defensive. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Henry shouldered the bag and looked at me one more time. I'll pick up Eva from school tomorrow and take her to Mum's. We'll be back Sunday. After he left, I called my best friend Marina to vent about Henry's overreaction. He's being such a baby about this, I complained. It's one party. Marina, who'd never particularly liked Henry's quiet nature, laughed. Men are so fragile. You're finally doing something for yourself and he can't handle it. Who's this college friend anyway? Anyone I know? I told her about Elliot, leaving out the secret lunches, and the way my pulse quickened when he texted me. Marina was immediately interested. Ooh, an ex? No wonder Henry's threatened. Is he cute? It's not like that, I protested, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. Sure it's not. Well, good for you for setting boundaries. Henry needs to learn that the world doesn't revolve around him. But as I hung up the phone and looked around our suddenly too quiet apartment, I wondered if I was the one who thought the world revolved around me. Eva called that evening from Henry's mother's house. Mommy, why can't Daddy come to the party? Her little voice was confused and hurt. Daddy's going to take you to see fireworks instead, sweetie. Won't that be fun? But I wanted to stay up until midnight with you and Daddy together. I closed my eyes. Sometimes grown-ups have to do different things, Eva. You'll understand when you're older. Is Daddy sad? The question hit me like a physical blow. Why would you think that? He keeps looking at his phone and then putting it away. And Grandma Helen made him tea, but he didn't drink it. Henry's mother Helen had never been my biggest fan. She was old-fashioned, the type who believed in working through problems instead of running from them. I could only imagine what she was thinking about my decision to uninvite her son from his own party. Daddy's fine, sweetheart. He's just tired from work. After Eva hung up, I sat in our living room looking at the decorations Henry had put up. Twinkling lights around the windows, champagne glasses arranged on the kitchen counter, a playlist of our favorite songs queued up on the stereo. Everything ready for a celebration that suddenly felt hollow. I texted Elliot, "All set for tomorrow night. Can't wait to see you." His response came immediately. "Looking forward to it. It'll be like old times." But as I went to bed alone in our king-sized bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that old times were exactly what I was afraid of losing. New Year's Eve arrived with the kind of crisp winter evening that made the city lights sparkle like diamonds. I'd spent the entire day preparing, getting my hair done, buying a new dress that hugged my curves in all the right places, setting up the apartment until it looked like something from a magazine. The dress was red silk, something I never would have worn to one of our usual parties. Henry always said I looked beautiful in whatever I wore, but this dress wasn't for Henry. It was for me, for feeling desirable and young and worth looking at. By 8 o'clock, guests were arriving. Marina showed up first, bringing her latest boyfriend and a bottle of expensive champagne. "You look amazing," she said, air-kissing my cheeks, very single and ready to mingle. "I'm not single," I protested, but the words felt strange in my mouth. You know what I mean, free, independent, not tied down by someone else's insecurities. The apartment filled up quickly. Colleagues from work, neighbors, old friends who'd been coming to our parties for years. Several people asked where Henry was, and I gave them the practiced explanation about him taking Eva to see fireworks. "That's weird," said Janet from accounting. "Henry loves hosting these parties. Remember last year when he did that whole speech about gratitude?" I cried. "He just wanted to do something special with Eva," I said, refilling her wine glass. "You know how he is about father-daughter time." But I could see the confusion in people's eyes. Henry and I were a unit at these parties. He mixed drinks while I arranged food. He told stories while I made sure everyone felt included. Our friends weren't used to seeing me without him, and their puzzled looks made me defensive. Then Elliot arrived. He walked into our apartment like he owned it, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit and carrying a bottle of champagne that probably cost more than Henry's weekly salary. Every conversation in the room seemed to pause as people took in this handsome stranger who clearly didn't belong to our usual crowd. "Mirabel," he said, kissing my cheek and letting his hand linger on my waist. "You look incredible." I felt myself flush with pleasure. When was the last time Henry had looked at me like that? When was the last time anyone had? "Everyone, this is Elliot," I announced to the room. "We went to college together." Elliot worked the room like a professional, charming my friends with stories about his travels and his consulting work. He had a way of making everyone feel like the most interesting person he'd ever met, but his attention kept coming back to me. He brought me drinks, complimented my hosting skills, and stood just a little too close when we talked. Marina pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Holy shit, Mirabel, he's gorgeous, and he's totally into you." "We're just catching up," I said, but I couldn't stop smiling. "Right, and I'm just breathing." "Girl, the way he's looking at you should be illegal in 12 states. As the evening progressed, I found myself gravitating toward Elliot more and more. We ended up on the couch together, sharing stories about college while our friends mingled around us. He had his arm draped casually across the back of the couch, and every time he laughed, his fingers would brush against my shoulder. "Remember that party junior year?" he said, his voice low and intimate. "When we snuck up to the roof of the library?" I remembered. We'd been dating then, young and reckless, and convinced we were destined for something extraordinary. We'd kissed under the stars and made plans for a future that had never materialized. That was a long time ago, I said, but I didn't move away from his touch. Some things are worth remembering, he said, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. Around 11:30, Marina suggested we all head up to the building's rooftop bar to watch the fireworks. It was a new addition to our building, and I'd been excited to show it off. The whole party migrated upstairs, champagne glasses in hand, laughing and chattering as we took the elevator to the top floor. The rooftop was perfect, twinkling lights strung between posts, heat lamps keeping the winter chill at bay, and a panoramic view of the city spreading out below us. Everyone spread out across the space, taking photos and claiming spots for the midnight countdown. Elliot found me by the railing, looking out at the lights. "Beautiful view," he said, but he was looking at me, not the city. "It is," I agreed, very aware of how close he was standing. "I've missed this," he said quietly. "Missed you." Before I could respond, Marina appeared with her phone. "Photo time. You two look so cute together." I should have stepped away, should have made some excuse about checking on other guests. Instead, I let Elliot put his arm around me and smiled for the camera. Marina took several shots, giggling and making comments about how photogenic we looked together. "Post that one," Elliot said, pointing to a photo where we were both laughing at something off camera. "We look happy." Marina was already typing. "How about ringing in the new year with old friends and new possibilities? Too much?" "Perfect," I said, caught up in the moment and the champagne, and the way Elliot was looking at me like I was the only woman in the world. The countdown began at 11:59. Everyone gathered together, champagne raised, voices joining in the familiar ritual. 10, 9, 8. Elliot moved closer to me. 7, 6, 5. His hand found mine. 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. And then Elliot was kissing me. It wasn't a friendly peck on the cheek. It was a real kiss, soft and warm and full of possibility. For a moment, I forgot where I was, forgot about Henry and Eva and the life I'd built. I was 22 again, standing on a library roof, believing in fairy tales. When we broke apart, I realized people were staring. Some were smiling indulgently, thinking it was just New Year's enthusiasm. Others looked confused, uncomfortable. Janet from accounting was frowning openly. "Where's your husband again?" she asked loudly enough for several people to hear. "Taking care of our daughter," I said, but my voice sounded defensive even to my own ears. The party began winding down after that. People made their polite goodbyes, thanking me for hosting but avoiding eye contact. I could feel judgment in their silence, disapproval in their quick departures. Elliot was one of the last to leave. "Thank you for tonight," he said, kissing my cheek at the door. "It was perfect." After everyone left, I cleaned up in a champagne-fueled haze, replaying the evening's highlights. The way Elliot had looked at me, the way he'd made me feel special and desired and alive. I posted a few more photos from the party on social media, including one of the group on the rooftop, where Elliot and I were standing close together, his hand on my waist. My phone buzzed with a text from Henry. "Hope you had a nice party. Eva fell asleep waiting for midnight, but we watched the fireworks from Mum's window. See you tomorrow." The simple, kind message should have made me feel guilty. Instead, it irritated me. Even when I'd pushed him away, Henry was being understanding and thoughtful. Why couldn't he fight for me? Why couldn't he make me feel the way Elliot did? I was about to put my phone away when another message appeared, this one from a number I didn't recognize. "Saw the photos. Interesting party. Thought you should know people are talking. A friend." My blood went cold. I scrolled through my social media posts, seeing them suddenly through different eyes. The photos that had seemed fun and harmless a few hours ago now looked incriminating. Elliot's arm around me, our faces close together, the intimate way we were looking at each other. But it was too late to take them down now. People had already seen them, already started talking. I turned off my phone and went to bed, but sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Henry's patient face, Eva's confused expression when she asked why Daddy couldn't come to the party. What had I done? I woke up the next morning to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The first few were from Marina, sending me screenshots of comments on my party photos. People from our social circle were asking questions, making observations, sharing the post with their own commentary. The photo of Elliot and me looking cozy on the rooftop had been shared 6 times already. "Girl, you might want to see this," Marina had texted at 3 a.m., along with a screenshot of a comment thread that made my stomach drop. Janet from accounting had written, "Weird that her husband wasn't at their own party. That guy she's all over definitely isn't him." Someone else had replied, "Wait, Mirabel's married? That's awkward." And then the kicker, from a mutual friend, "Henry's such a nice guy too. This is sad." I scrolled through more messages. Some were supportive, from friends who thought I looked happy and glowing, but others were concerned, confused, or outright judgmental. The worst was from Henry's brother Lucas. "What the hell, Mirabel? Henry's devastated." My hands were shaking as I called Marina. "Oh good, you're awake," she said. "I was wondering when you'd see all this drama." "It's not drama," I snapped. "People are making a big deal out of nothing." "Honey, that kiss at midnight was not nothing. Half the party saw it. And these photos, you and this Elliot guy look like you're about to book a hotel room. We're just friends. Friends don't look at each other like that, and friends definitely don't kiss like that." Marina's voice was excited, like she was watching a soap opera unfold. "So what's the plan? Are you leaving Henry?" "Of course not. I needed one night to feel good about myself, to remember who I used to be before I became just a wife and mother." "There's nothing wrong with that," Marina said firmly. "You deserve to be happy. If Henry can't handle you having male friends, that's his problem." But even as Marina validated my choices, I couldn't shake the sick feeling in my stomach. I'd crossed a line last night, and now there was evidence of it scattered across the internet for everyone to see. Henry and Eva came home around noon. I heard them in the hallway, Eva's bright chatter about the fireworks and Henry's quieter responses. When they walked into the apartment, Eva ran to me for a hug, but Henry barely looked in my direction. "How was your night?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Fine," Henry said, setting down their overnight bag. "Eva had fun. She wants to show you the pictures we took." Eva pulled out Henry's phone, scrolling through photos of fireworks lighting up the sky. "Look, Mummy, Daddy let me stay up until 12:15. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." I glanced at Henry, who was methodically unpacking their things. "Did you have fun too?" "It was fine," he repeated, his tone carefully neutral. Eva wandered off to play with her toys, leaving Henry and me alone in the living room. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken tension. "So," Henry said finally, "how was your party?" "Good, everyone had fun. The rooftop bar was a hit." "I saw the photos." My heart stopped. "What photos?" Henry pulled out his phone and showed me my own social media feed. There I was, radiant and laughing, with Elliot's arm around me. There we were on the rooftop, standing closer than friends should stand. "Who is he?" Henry asked quietly. "I told you, an old college friend." "The one who would feel awkward if I was there." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Henry scrolled through more photos. "He doesn't look awkward. He looks very comfortable. With my wife. At my party, in my home." "Henry, did you sleep with him?" The question hit me like a slap. "No, God, no. We just talked and caught up and kissed at midnight. It was just a New Year's kiss. It didn't mean anything." Henry looked at me for a long moment. You uninvited me from our party so you could kiss another man at midnight. That's not what happened, isn't it? He pocketed his phone. I'm going to grade papers. He walked toward our home office, and I followed him. Henry, you're blowing this out of proportion. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. He turned around, and for the first time, I saw real anger in his eyes. You kicked me out of my own home so you could play house with your ex-boyfriend. You humiliated me in front of all our friends. You let him kiss you and posted pictures of it online for everyone to see. And you think nothing happened? I didn't kick you out. I just asked for one night. To do what, exactly? To pretend you're single? To see what it would be like to be with someone else? His accuracy was devastating. You're being paranoid. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my wife is having an affair. I am not having an affair. The words came out louder than I intended, and we both glanced toward Eva's room. Then what do you call this? Henry asked quietly. Secret lunches? Intimate photos? Kissing at midnight while your husband babysits your daughter? How do you know about... I stopped, realizing what I'd just admitted. About the lunches? I didn't, but thank you for confirming it. I felt trapped, caught in a web of my own making. Henry, I can explain. I'm sure you can. You're very good at explaining things in ways that make me the villain. Henry sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. But I'm done being the understanding husband who doesn't ask questions. I'm done pretending this is normal. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm protecting myself, and Eva. Something cold settled in my chest. Protecting yourself from what? From whatever this is. He gestured vaguely between us. From whatever you're doing. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to make him understand that I wasn't trying to hurt him. But looking at his face, tired, hurt, determined, I realized that my explanations didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. That evening, Eva drew a picture at the kitchen table while I made dinner. When she showed it to me, my heart sank. It was our family, but instead of the usual grouped-together figures, she'd drawn Henry far away from Eva and me, separated by what looked like a wall or a river. That's beautiful, sweetie, I said carefully. Can you tell me about it? That's you and me, she said, pointing to two figures, holding hands. And that's Daddy over there. Why is Daddy so far away? Eva shrugged with the casual wisdom of children. He seems sad. Sad people go away sometimes. I looked at the drawing again, seeing it through Eva's 6-year-old perspective. Even she could sense the distance growing between her parents, the tension that had nothing to do with her, but everything to do with the choices I'd been making. That night, I lay in bed listening to Henry breathe beside me. We hadn't talked about sleeping arrangements, hadn't discussed the elephant in the room. But there was an invisible wall between us now, as real as the one Eva had drawn. I thought about texting Elliot, about the way he'd made me feel special and desired, but for the first time since he'd walked back into my life, the fantasy felt hollow. The excitement was still there, but underneath it was something darker. The growing realization that I might be destroying something precious for something that might not even be real. But it was too late for regrets. The photos were online, the gossip had started, and Henry was pulling away from me in ways that felt permanent. I'd wanted excitement, validation, proof that I was still desirable. Instead, I'd gotten judgment, suspicion, and the growing certainty that I'd made a terrible mistake. But I wasn't ready to admit that yet. Not to Henry, not to myself, and definitely not to the world that was watching my marriage fall apart in real time. The gossip started at work on Monday morning. I could feel it the moment I walked into Morrison and Associates. Conversations that stopped when I appeared. Sideways glances, whispered comments that followed me to my desk. Janet, from accounting, made a point of walking by my cubicle 3 times before lunch, each time slowing down to look at me with barely concealed disapproval. When I finally asked if she needed something, she just shook her head and said, "I feel sorry for your husband." By Tuesday, the office manager called me into her office. "Mirabel, I need to talk to you about maintaining professional boundaries," Mrs. Patterson said, closing the door behind me. "It's come to my attention that you've been meeting with clients outside of official business hours." My blood ran cold. "I don't know what you mean." "Elliot Rains. He's mentioned having lunch with you several times during our marketing meetings. While I appreciate friendly client relations, we need to be careful about appearances. We're old friends. There's nothing inappropriate about, perhaps not. But when photos of you two at parties start circulating online, it raises questions about professional conduct." Mrs. Patterson's expression was stern, but not unkind. "I'm not accusing you of anything improper, but I need you to be more mindful of how your personal life might reflect on this company." I nodded, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. Even at work, my private life was becoming public judgment. Lunch with Marina that day was supposed to be a refuge, but even she seemed less enthusiastic about my liberation than she'd been over the weekend. "People are really talking," she said, picking at her salad. "I mean, I'm on your side, but some of the comments on those photos are pretty harsh." "What kind of comments?" Marina hesitated. "Well, there's this whole thread about how Henry's such a good guy and how you don't deserve him. And someone posted a photo of him with Eva at the fireworks, and people are saying how sad he looks. He doesn't look sad in those photos. Actually, he kind of does. Like, he's smiling for Eva, but his eyes look really tired." I didn't want to hear this. I didn't want to think about Henry looking sad while I was kissing Elliot on a rooftop. "People need to mind their own business." "Maybe, but when you post photos like that, I mean, you kind of made it everyone's business." That afternoon, I received a text from Helen, Henry's mother. "We need to talk. I'm coming over for dinner tonight." Helen Vey was not a woman you argued with. At 58, she was retired from 30 years of teaching elementary school, and she had the kind of quiet authority that made grown men straighten their posture. She'd always been polite to me, but I'd never felt like I quite measured up to her standards for her son. She arrived at 6 o'clock sharp, carrying a casserole dish and wearing her most neutral expression. "Hello, Mirabel. Where are Henry and Eva?" "Henry's at a faculty meeting. Eva's at her friend Sophie's house." "Good, then we can speak freely." Helen set down the casserole and turned to face me. "I've seen the photos." "Helen, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You've always been good with explanations." Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. "What I want to know is what you plan to do about it." "About what?" "About the fact that you humiliated my son in front of your entire social circle. About the fact that your daughter is asking why Daddy seems sad all the time. About the fact that you're behaving like a single woman when you're married to one of the best men I've ever known." The words hit like physical blows. "I'm not doing anything wrong. Henry and I are having some problems, but that doesn't mean—" "What problems?" Helen's eyebrows rose. "The problem where he works 2 jobs to support your family. The problem where he comes home every night and helps with homework and bedtime stories. The problem where he loves you despite the fact that you clearly don't appreciate what you have. You don't understand. I feel trapped, invisible. Henry's a good man, but he's boring. He doesn't make me feel special anymore." Helen stared at me for a long moment. "Do you know what Henry told me this weekend?" I shook my head. "He said he was worried about you. Said you seemed unhappy lately, and he didn't know how to help. He wasn't angry about being uninvited from the party. He was concerned that you felt like you couldn't talk to him about whatever was bothering you." The revelation hit me like a punch to the stomach. While I'd been planning my dramatic evening with Elliot, Henry had been worried about my happiness. "He also said," Helen continued, "that he'd been planning to suggest marriage counseling after the holidays. He thought maybe you two needed help communicating better." He never mentioned counseling. "Because he didn't want you to feel like he was criticizing you. He was trying to find a way to bring it up gently." Helen's expression softened slightly. "That's who my son is, Mirabel. He puts your feelings before his own, even when you don't deserve it." I felt tears starting to form. I never meant for things to go this far. But they have gone this far, and now you need to decide what you're going to do about it. When Henry came home an hour later, Helen was gone, but her words lingered in the air like smoke. He looked tired, older somehow, and when Eva ran to hug him, I saw the way he held her just a little longer than usual. "How was the faculty meeting?" I asked. "Fine." He didn't meet my eyes. "How was your day?" "Your mother came by." "I know, she texted me." We stood in the kitchen, the weight of unspoken things pressing down on us. Eva chattered about her playdate, oblivious to the tension between her parents. "Henry," I started, but he held up a hand. "Not now. Not in front of Eva." After Eva's bedtime, I found Henry in his office, grading papers with mechanical precision. His desk, usually cluttered with lesson plans and student projects, was unnaturally organized. Everything sorted, filed, put in its proper place. "We need to talk," I said. "Do we?" He didn't look up from the paper he was marking. "Because I feel like we've said everything we need to say. I want to explain about Elliot." "What's to explain? You invited your ex-boyfriend to our party, uninvited me so you could be alone with him, and then kissed him at midnight while posting photos for all our friends to see." He finally looked up. "Did I miss anything?" "It wasn't planned. The kiss just happened." "Nothing just happens, Mirabel. You made choices. A series of deliberate choices that led to that moment." I sat down across from him. "I know I hurt you. I know I made mistakes. But we can work through this." Henry set down his pen and really looked at me for the first time in days. "Can we? Because I've been thinking about that, about whether we can work through this, and I keep coming back to the same question." "What question? Do you want to work through this, or do you want to keep seeing what else is out there?" The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to say, of course I wanted to work on our marriage, but the words stuck in my throat, because the truth was, I didn't know. The excitement I'd felt with Elliot was still there, still calling to me. The fantasy of a different life, a more exciting life, hadn't disappeared just because I'd been caught. My hesitation was answer enough. Henry nodded slowly and went back to his grading. That's what I thought. That night I lay awake listening to him breathe, wondering when we'd become strangers sharing a bed, wondering if we could find our way back to each other, or if I'd already destroyed something that couldn't be repaired. But mostly, I wondered why the thought of losing Henry felt both terrifying and oddly liberating at the same time.